Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are watching this or listening to the podcast later. We're glad that you tuned in. Today, we are going to be talking about using images and video in social media. And, here's what you might be saying. Well, I don't do social media for your job, but you're probably using it in some form or fashion. And here's the thing. I really believe, and my guest, I'm confident, believes that videos and images can really enhance everything you're doing there. So we're going to be talking about that, even kind of behind the scenes social media, how you can use these things to improve what you're doing. So with that said, let me jump in and introduce our guest. Our guest today is Jessie O'Donnell. She started at TechSmith when she was 3 years old. That's not actually true, but considering she's been working there longer than me, you might think that was right. Jessie is our social media coordinator and a dang good one. If you ever communicated with TechSmith on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Twitter, or any other of our social media platforms that we're on, you've probably communicated in some form or fashion with Jessie. Although, just to be fair, she's not the only one doing it. We do let her out for air occasionally. She is really, in my experience, a master at social media and handles difficult challenges with grace and a sense of humor. I've seen her shrug off social media that would make most of us cry or frankly throw our phones while she just moves on to the next challenge with grace. I've had the privilege of being Jessie's coworker, her manager, and most importantly, someone that I consider a close friend. And she is someone that I know that can, in event of a crappy day or I'm just in need of a laugh, I can turn to. And it's my great pleasure to welcome to Jessie O'Donnell to the Visual Lounge. Hi, Jessie.
Hi, Matt. Thank you for that awesome intro.
You are welcome. And for everyone who has tuned into any of our shows, you are the Jessie that I'm always referring to who is helping behind the scenes.
Yes, I get to be on the other side today. It's kind of weird,
So
but I'm
bring
excited.
all your questions because we got Ryan. Ryan Board is
Yeah,
watching the chat.
let's give
Make it.
Ryan a run for his money. He'll
That's
never
right.
volunteer to fill in again. Thank you, Ryan.
So Jessie, I obviously introduced you, but is there anything else you would add to your introduction to help people to get to know you a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, I have, like Matt said, I've been at TechSmith since I was 3 years old. I've been here 20 years, and I am older than 23, but we don't need to worry about that. And I have social media has been my primary focus for about the last 10, 12-ish years. Oh my gosh. And so it's been really exciting to see the evolution of that, not only in the industry, but at TechSmith and how we've handled it and changed our approach to things. So I'm just really excited to be here and get to nerd out about all my social media stuff today.
Yeah, and so I think it's. I want to dive into social media here, kind of deeply, quickly. It seems like, when I remember like when Twitter started, and it was like, oh, Twitter, but it was all text, right? 140 characters, that's all you got. But it seems like every social media platform has tried to become much more of visual platforms. And I'm curious, kind of from your experience, Jessie, how has that changed like the role of a social media coordinator or manager in terms of what you do on a regular basis?
Sure, yeah. I know that I learned about Twitter from a brown bag that we had with one of our coworkers at TechSmith, and remember thinking at the time, what would we ever do with this, especially as a brand? And now I mean, a lot of times that's the first thought that people have is I'm going to go to Twitter to interact with this brand. And so it starts out with us just being there for customers and responding to things. But then as image and video comes into play, and that's kind of TechSmith's bread and butter with our products, it's really helpful to have those tools available to be able to get people answers they need and actually provide, screenshots and videos to help learn how to use our products. And then, especially from the publishing side too, it makes for better content as well.
Yeah, it seems like, the limitations that these platforms have put on it scream for the need for like short,
Mhm.
quick videos or for images. And so in your day to day, are you doing a lot of images? Or are you still just are you doing a lot of text responses? Like what, I guess fill us in. Cause I actually
Sure.
remember when we started our social media team at TechSmith and
Yeah.
it was like one person and then we grew from one person to, I think you might have been the second person. And
Yeah, I
it's,
think I think we only had a couple, but yeah.
It's definitely changed a lot. So what kind of does day to day look like? Is it mostly you're just a keyboard warrior,
Sure.
tapping away, or what?
There's still a lot of text, definitely. Uh, but a lot of that text is also a link to something like a tutorial or a screenshot. Especially if people are asking questions like, how do I do this, or where did this thing go in my product? Maybe they're on a different version or something like that. It's easy for me to pull up the product and take a quick screenshot and provide that as like a screencast link, so that it's a link to the screenshot for them to look at, or a quick screencast. So I make a quick video, navigating to where they need to go to find what they're trying to do. So there is still quite a bit of text, but um, on as part of interacting with a customer through text over in our social media channels, part of that is me communicating with our internal teams like tech support or customer service or the actual product teams to say, hey, where do I find this? I'm not actually sure. And then they're able to help me out. And so screenshots are so important to that, because can you imagine trying to, get a response back? Say, go to the help menu, go to this, then go to this. Do you see this? And then wait for a response back. So it just makes it so much faster if you can just, have a quick screenshot to explain where to go and do things. It's much better on both ends.
Well, I love that you've simplified things, right, by being able to show. But the connection I think I want to make for our audience here is the fact that how valuable that is internally in that communication. I mean, I don't know that we can quantify these things, but I imagine the amount of information going back and forth, because email is already tough, right? Like if
Yeah.
you're in a support department and you're getting more emails from internal people, it just takes so much time. But then if it's just an image or a couple, like, hey, what is this? Like
Mhm.
I imagine that's got to kind of speed that up. Do you have any good? I know before we talked, for everybody, we talked about like, hey, are there any stories or examples? And I'd love to hear. I think these are the concepts here are probably best illustrated by us just talking through some of the things that you've experienced, because as we know, experience is the most important thing, right? Like we got to
Yeah.
level up somehow. I'm going to throw all the Dungeons and Dragons reference in here,
Yes,
Jesse.
absolutely. Do it. Yeah, definitely. So, one of the things that I feel very strongly about is making sure that we're taking, especially like customer feedback about, products or experiences that people are having, and sharing that internally with the product teams and with tech support. Like I said, so people can get the help that they need quicker, because social media it's a huge part of how we communicate outwardly with our customers. It's a huge part of how we take messages in, but it's also a huge part of, the customer service experience for people. And so, to wrap that around fully, you have to be taking that feedback and giving it back to the product teams. And so I do that by taking lots of screenshots, um, to catalog the product feedback that I'm getting, the actual messages from customers,
Mm-hmm.
as well as screenshots within the product to point out the specific areas they're talking about. And then I kind of organize all that. I tag my screenshots as like feedback in my Snagit library, so that if I'm taking screenshots as I'm replying, when I go back, at the end of the day, I didn't lose all that, because I don't know about you, but I don't remember every single interaction I have during the day. Um, that would be quite a superpower. So those, like, being able to tag things in the library is really powerful. And then my favorite part is I also do a report, internally, and I can take those things in my Snagit library, or I can just do a quick video. It's almost like a cue to remind me to go back and look at that interaction, and I can make a quick video talking through it, and then I can shoot it right into Camtasia. Um, I feel like I just kind of hack my way through making images and videos, even though I work with these tools every single day.
Which is great. And so I love, again, I want to just draw some of these ideas of things that you're saying out here. So I
Mhm.
love this idea of capturing information, because oftentimes I think I'm going to make a screenshot or I'm going to take a video for the sole purpose of like, I'm convincing somebody or showing them how to do something. But I love this mechanism of capturing, because um,
Mhm.
I think for anyone who's doing social media, this is brilliant, Jesse. I love this. That like product teams, I carry very little weight with the product team, right? Like they're like, okay, that's Matt, he's an expert, whatever. But when a customer says something, it's infinitely more valuable than if Matt has an opinion on something. And so I love this that you're able to do that. And I've seen some of your reports and seen the things, and it's amazing just the kind of the how quickly we can gather thoughts and sentiment and feedback based on just a bunch of screenshots from people saying kind of whatever it is that they have feedback about, both good and not so good.
Yeah. It's not all rainbows, but nothing is.
All sunshine makes a desert, right?
That's right. Exactly. Another thing that is a really kind of fringe type of feedback that you wouldn't maybe think of right away, because we're a software company, and so the majority of the messages we're receiving are about our software. But we also get feedback, indirectly on how people respond to things like our advertisements. So I guess I do have a little story. So there's one where there was a title of one of our ebooks that people really did not like. And if anyone has ever interacted with this, just know that you made me laugh every time you commented on it. And I won't call it out specifically, but this was something that it was really eye-opening to me, because there was kind of a disconnect between, the copy on the ad and then what people were saying back. And the social media team is kind of the bridge between those two things. So it's our responsibility to make sure we are cataloging that and taking it back and saying, hey, people really have kind of an issue with this. And at first it was like, one or two. And then it was like, we're getting a lot of people saying the same thing about this ad. And so then we were able to kind of change how we were saying things to make it, to fit the goal of the piece, because it was really taking away from the value that was being provided. It wasn't that people weren't finding the content valuable. It was just the way that we had worded the advertisement. And so that type of feedback is really valuable too for marketing.
Yeah, I love that. And Jessie, as you know how the show works. You've sat through comments. I'm just going to share some comments as we go, because I think
Please do. Yes,
it's awesome. So Alan says it's that customer service experience that makes people like me feel valued. TechSmith customer. So absolutely, thank you, Alan, for that comment. We're so appreciative. And our good friend Jason Vlad said, "Wait, if Jessie is live, who's in the chat?"
Dun dun dun.
It's a mystery.
Jason, I thought it was you.
Yeah, didn't he get the invite? Wait a second.
Yeah, I think Jason's probably moderating. I'm sure it's fine.
So Jessie, one of the things I've come accustomed to in social media is, we see a lot of memes being passed around, a lot of fun stuff. As a brand, I've got to imagine there's so many fine lines that you have to kind of watch. And I'm less interested in the memes and that piece of it, but I think there's always a question when it comes to videos and images about quality, because I can imagine you are moving from potentially fire to fire to fire to help people. And I don't mean fire in a bad way, but I mean like things, people have needs and you got to answer those quickly. That quality, you could I'm just going to slap something in and call it good. And is that okay for brands to be doing, do you think? Or should they be taking time to refine whatever kind of visuals that they're doing so it is better quality? I know it's not all or nothing, but what's that balance look like for you?
Yeah. So there is a difference between, I'm creating this piece that's going to be promoting some of our content, or to try and get people to take an action, or maybe to even just convey information, okay, like your published content. When people are asking for help, or, they're asking a question, it's more important that you show up with an answer, whether that's a quality screencast or it's something you threw together quickly. It's so much more important that you're actually providing an answer than, creating a polished piece of content. The value there is getting them an answer, not creating a masterpiece to share.
So I've got to imagine there are, and you mentioned, you use these tools all the time, but you're still your confidence level and how good they are.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, for our, there's got to be hard to put something out there that's not quality. I imagine there's a lot of our audience who will say, nope, I'm not going to do that because I'm not confident, one, with how the audience may react. You don't want them to react poorly, or I don't feel good about putting something out there. It's kind of like, so how do you work through that to make sure you do feel good about it? Is it just the fact that like, hey, at least I'm giving them an answer that's going to help them? Or, this is where I like personally, I struggle too, because it's like, well, I want my best foot forward. I want them to see what's
Yeah.
the best.
Yeah. Um, there is, again, I'm going to have to say it depends, which,
Of course, we say that all the time. It's a
it
fine
always does,
answer.
right? It always depends. There's always a time and a place, right? So when you're trying to provide an answer for someone, as long as you can get them um, the specific answer for what they're trying to do and try and help them solve their problem. If it's a screenshot that has an arrow in it, that's good enough, in my opinion. Can you read what's there? Is it showing the place they need to get to solve their issue? That's good enough. If it's some type of outbound content, you're repurposing some content, which I know we've talked about a lot on the live stream before about repurposing content. We were with an awesome third company that does a lot of repurposing. So a lot of times I will try and kind of do that with maybe one of our blog posts or something. You want to talk about things in a different way. I have zero graphic design skills at all. So we even have a tool we use Canva a lot, which is great because it gives you simple templates. Nobody can mess this up. I can mess this up. So a lot of times I'll look at something and I'll just way overthink it because I'm thinking it's got to be more complicated than this. I need to put a lot of thought and skill into this, and it needs to look really polished and nice. And then I just way overdo it, and it's a horrible mess. So keeping things simple, I've found, has been the key. Like, have one goal in mind with your content, stick to that. And then when you go and you review it or you have someone else look at it, make sure they know that goal as well. And if it accomplishes that goal, then it doesn't matter if it's going to be selected for some kind of, graphic design award. It's going to get the information across.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of even developing, and you could do this in Snagger or other tools, but having some templates to help you to move through it quickly, whether that's even just brand colors or, whatever it is,
Yeah.
certain shapes. That just seems like that would be super helpful to have as you're, I've got to imagine the daily need to build or make something is just present because no two questions are exactly the same. And nor two answers be the same. I want to share a quick another comment with you real quick. This is our friend Kathy. Kathy says, totally agree, Jessie. Our users cannot complete a project if they get stuck. The longer they have to wait, the greater chance of a blow up on social media, which is a great point.
Yes. And that kind of, you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, Matt, with, it sounded like, a lot of times there might be a little bit of hesitation to put something out there because you think, oh, it's not good enough, or, what old people think. And maybe this is me just having developed that thick skin with being in social media so long. You just have to try it and put it out there, and people will tell you if they don't like it. That is, that has been a really big lesson that I've learned and that I try to teach people as well. Like, just try and put it out there. And if your customers don't like it, they will tell you, and then you can modify it and find a way that it does accomplish that goal that you're going for. Or maybe look at your goal. Maybe that's not the right thing that's going to resonate with people.
Yeah, I love that. And I wanted, again, I mentioned, so we'll let the audience in on this. We play Dungeons and Dragons together. And so you've got like a +2 armor in social media. I love it. It's that thick skin.
Yes.
I need to level up my armor. The Rich Schaefer Show says, I have found that spontaneous live content seems well received, allows the viewer to share the waterfall live during a hike. But if I am not doing it live, then prepping it in Camtasia makes it great. Thank you for that, Rich. That's great insight, right? Like, and I love what you said. Like, your audience, like they'll tell us if it's good. They'll tell if it's not good. But I think most people are just happy to get that answer. They're happy to move on because. And tell me if you think I'm wrong, Jessie, but I don't think people are using our product or other people's product because they want to use the product. I don't use Snagit because I want to use Snagit. I use Snagit because I want a screenshot. I want to annotate an image. I want to make a visual that's going to answer a problem. Same with Camtasia.
Yeah.
I don't use Camtasia because, I use it because part of my job, but I don't use it when I do use it because I want to use Camtasia. I use it because I want a video. I need a video. I need to
Right.
communicate a message. Do you think that that's true?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know, another part of social media is that you're kind of listening to other conversations that are happening related to things that people are doing with your software. Maybe it's not specifically with ours, but we'll regularly get tagged in, you know, things like Twitter chats or conversations people are having where they're recommending tools. And whether it's a competing tool or one of our tools, that fact does remain. Like people, they don't care what the tool is. They find the tool that's going to work for them to accomplish a goal. It doesn't matter, you know, that I'm using Camtasia or I'm using something else.
Right.
That's a great point.
Now, I want to interject here for everyone that is tuned in and listening. By the end of today's show, we got more to talk about Jessie, but we're going to do something. We had put out a couple weeks ago that we're doing a contest because Jessie, guess what? This is 1 year of going live and live streaming. So we've been doing this. I don't think we hit every single week, but I think there was very few that we didn't hit.
Pretty close. You haven't had a break in a long time, Matt.
Look, I don't take vacations on Thursdays because I want to be here for our audience.
Thank you.
And so we did a giveaway. If it's too late. You can't enter. So sorry if you missed the boat. But if you posted something you've learned over the last year, hashtag Visual Lounge, we've rounded those up. We are going to be giving away 3 to 3 people. They get to choose Audiate. They can choose Audiate or I can't speak. Camtasia, assets for Camtasia or assets for Snagit. They get to pick one of those, but 3 people. And we're going to roll, in true nerd fashion, we are going to roll dice for this, and we're going to choose who gets to be a lucky winner. So that's coming up a little bit later. But if you do have questions, you've got thoughts or comments you want to share about how you're using images in social media, I want to talk to Jessie. She's our resident social media expert at TechSmith. Put it in the chat. We got someone. Now I don't feel like I can give him credit for helping out today, but he does. He gets all the credit. Ryan gets all the credit today since Jessie isn't paying attention to what's going on. Is that hard to do, not pay attention? Are you?
A little bit. There's a little bit of that, like, I'm missing something over here, but I don't even have it open because I would be distracted and I'd be wanting to respond. So,
well, we're glad you're here today. So Jessie, as we start keep thinking about visuals and image. So there's the forward facing, customer facing side of this, but you mentioned communicating with like customer service or technical support, but there's also a lot of internal stuff that you have to do. You mentioned reporting. What are some of the times you find that you're using visuals and images in your job that is internally facing, that's maybe not dealing directly with the customer?
Sure. Yeah. So a lot of like I said, a lot of the feedback that we get, I do take that to the product teams directly. And sometimes there's, personally identifiable information. Did I get that right? PII?
Yeah.
That we need to kind of hide because it's sensitive content and we don't want to just be sending that in an email or something, whether it's in a screenshot or text. So I do, regularly have to blur things out to hide names and things like that, or, email addresses. So that's really valuable for me to be able to do that quickly. I see a lot of screenshots that are taken like on a phone where people like crudely like cross things out. And I've definitely done that, but it's so easy when I'm on my computer to just be able to like highlight and blur things really quickly and share that where it needs to go. And then let's see.
Training. You make some awesome video, like results videos.
I do. Yes. So I do love using Snagit and Camtasia together to make my internal report videos. So I'll talk about what we did on social media this month. Here were some interactions we had. Here were some new things with our internal tools that we're using. And this last month, I did create one where I like to use Snagit for my main video, but then I go and I edit it in Camtasia because it's really easy for me to quickly just record my screen with me tapping through a presentation with Snagit and then throw that in Camtasia and add some music and call outs. And I cannot help myself talking about memes and GIFs. I can't help myself, but I have to add call outs to all the stock footage that I put in my videos because it's just funny to me. Like, I like to pretend that the people in a meeting are talking about what I'm talking about, or, and just add a little bit of humor, some little Easter eggs for the people. It has two purposes. One, it makes it more entertaining than me just droning on about what we did. And number two, it's like a reward for the people watching. Like, they get a little bit of, they get the entertainment, and then I get to see who is paying attention, because people typically will reach out and say, like, I see what you did there. So, it's kind of twofold, but it adds some fun to it. I can't do my job without having fun. So
Yeah, I would imagine on a daily basis, the number of communications you have to have with people, that if you're not having a little bit of fun, you would be burned out and wore out very quickly.
yeah, yeah. And, you have to kind of put yourself in people's shoes too. I'd be frustrated if I was in this situation. And so I don't take anything personally. It's very hard to get me too riled up with things. I understand that, like, you're probably having a bad day if you came and you're that upset. So we're going to try and help you out. So yeah, I do like to inject fun wherever I can. So I use Snagit and Camtasia together to make our videos. And I have templates in Camtasia, so I can just drop my video in, and I have like an intro, outro thing going on. So that makes it super simple. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that it's such a thing. Like, I imagine, because social media doesn't stop, and we try not to work you 24 hours a day. I mean,
Yeah,
legally, we don't think we can.
right.
But it makes so much sense that if you can save yourself a little bit of time, you're just that much more effective at not only on the customer side, but internal, because we all know an internal share out isn't free of time. It takes still time
Yeah,
to gather everything together. So I love that idea of having just some simple templates, that, because
yeah,
we don't really care if you use the same template over and over. We're just happy to
right.
get the information.
Yeah. And this month I left in, my kid and my cat in the background, and I just made it part of it, because what the heck? I mean, that was life. That's what was happening. And I feel like, this past year, more than any other, I think has been really great for people to see that, like, oh yeah, I can make a video, and it's okay if it's not that polished piece of art, because everybody's making videos. So that's been kind
Yeah.
of nice.
Andrea says she's watching on LinkedIn. Thanks for watching, Andrea. I love that. Reward for watching and more fun.
Yes. Hi, Andrea. Oh,
So,
yeah.
are, are you okay to take a question? We got another question,
Yeah, for
Jessie.
sure. Yep.
Rich says, when posting to the different social media sites, do you know if there's an information site as when each social platform posting is more likely to be viewed? So I think the question is, summarizing here for Rich, is there,
Hmm.
like, do you have senses of when things are going to be viewed? How do you keep track of that? And I would
Sure.
extend this question, because we're all about images and videos here. Do you know that if things are going to get does that make images and video make a difference? Like, and this is different than responding. This is kind of like planning your posts out,
Sure.
right? Like, are there good
Yeah,
times that you
definitely.
find, and do images and videos make it better?
Yeah, and it's dependent on the platforms, definitely. But we definitely see differences with, LinkedIn. If you have more text, that does really well. We've seen a lot of success with videos on LinkedIn lately as a brand. Personally, I get better results with just text. So it really depends on your audience, and you have to kind of play around with it. We're pretty lucky because we do use some social media management tools that have some awesome built-in reporting. So we use we're using Sprout Social, and they have a viral post time. So they have this algorithm that will kind of predict when your content is most likely to be interacted with based on when your audience is online. So they have some kind of magical behind the scenes formula, and they will suggest like optimal times for you to post. And those do seem to get better engagement. But I would just suggest trying different times and then looking back and seeing what works for your audience across the different networks, because different things are going to perform better different places. One size does not fit all for social media networks. And I think anybody that's in the social media space does know that. But sometimes it's a lot easier to just take that same tweet and slap it across all the different networks. But you're going to be sacrificing some results if you do it that way. So,
And I would imagine that's true of images too, right? Like, you gotta adjust for the platform, because
hmm,
I know, like,
yeah,
I've tried this, like the same image across Twitter and LinkedIn, and these are personal posts, not for TechSmith,
yep,
and it's like
yeah,
if it works, yeah, and one, it may not even get touched on the other.
Yeah. Yep. And I've tried some of those experiments as well. And yep, same thing. You can't, it is nice to be able to, if you do have one image that you want to use, to optimize it for the the size that is preferred on that network, to kind of optimize it. And so that's where something like a Snagit template or a saved, size comes in handy, or like Canva, where you can take a template for a social media post and this is the size that I need for Instagram, but that's not the same size that you need for Twitter necessarily to displayed in the optimum or optimal size.
Yeah, for sure. And there's plenty of guides out there. If you're unsure of what sizes, I know
Mhm.
Sprout Social, actually, they're the one I go to because they have an always updated sizing guide. Because it
Yes.
seems like once I figure it out, the social media platform changes the size of images and
They
videos. I'm
like to
like,
keep you on your toes. Yeah. Yep.
well,
Same with video. They can't all use the same video. They can't all use, it would be boring then. What would we even have jobs for?
so Jesse, in terms of again, kind of keep on the theme of images and videos, what have you, from your experience, what has been the most successful post with an image or video that you've seen? Like what, and I'm less interested in the post because we don't care really about what the post is, but I'm
Hmm.
curious, like, what about that made it successful? I mean, you've talked about some various kind of things that you've done, but is there one
Hmm.
that stands out in your mind of like, yeah, this really worked, and are there characteristics that we could learn from?
Yeah, definitely. So I mentioned, and I know they've been on the stream before. Content 10x
Hmm.
is an awesome company that we work with, and they do a lot of repurposing of of this live stream, our blog content. They do a lot of awesome work for us, and we have learned so much from them in terms of what works well and what doesn't. So one of the things that we recently experimented with was on LinkedIn. We know that videos were working very well there, and they do a really nice job of taking a chunk of a video, putting the text captions right on the video, so that you don't have to have the sound on. You can still hear what's going on with the video by reading it. Um, and then it's a short video. It's not too long. It keeps you engaged. It's got a nice bright color going on, like a lower third call out or a title. So it catches your eye. It stops you from scrolling. It's very clear what you're going to learn from this video. So that alone was doing pretty well. Then we took it a step further and we optimized the content, the text content that was going along with it. So on LinkedIn, those first two lines are so important to hook people in. And so we know that we don't want to be just selling people and telling them, hey, go read this blog post. There are plenty of social media posts that do that. And we've done that for a long time, but we're realizing that it's why would we not just give the value where the people are reading it right now? So along with that video that has the captions on it, so you can watch it quickly, we optimize the content in text form. So you can just read the post. Those first two lines tell you exactly what you're going to learn. Then we spell out the valuable information that you're getting in the video right there in the post. You don't have to go anywhere. If you want to, we've got the link for you. You can go read that or find other posts. But um, the whole goal of that is to be giving people that valuable information so they're learning something from us. And so giving it to them in the platform that they're on really resonated, and it really worked well to edit that text to match what was being said in the video, rather than generic call to action that was like, here's a video with this person, click here to read more. That's boring and plain, and it's just kind of the same thing. You've got to stand out a little bit, and you've got to be providing value.
Well, a couple things that you mentioned, I just want to again kind of pull out here that I thought were
Hmm.
really interesting. One, that the text is there, so I don't have to listen to it. And I think
Yep.
that's great because when I know, like, and this is when I do a lot of consumption. I'm probably laying in bed, or I've just woken. It's usually, either way, going to bed or waking up, and I'm
Hmm.
like, scroll,
Yep.
scroll, scroll. I don't have headphones, and I just, like, what's it? I'm not gonna watch this video. I skip,
Hmm.
and guilty as charged. But as a guy that makes a lot of video, I skip a lot because I'm like, this is not convenient because I'm not gonna wake up my partner over here because I want to listen
Exactly. Yeah.
to like whatever
Yeah.
video. But then you also said that with this optimizing text that it's not either or, right? Like you can't just put a video and expect it to be successful, but that you're pulling out this information. And the third thing that was really key to me, that we're giving them the highlights. And I love this because social media is quick, right? Like I don't want to spend an hour, which there's times I consume content that's an hour long
Sure.
every week. But in that context of where it is, that if I want more, then I have access to go get more versus I don't, but I'm still getting that piece there. So I think those are all really awesome takeaways from what you just said. And hopefully, if you're not trying these things, folks, this is the opportunity to learn from Jessie. Go take, whether you're doing your own personal blog or personal social media accounts, or you're managing an account for an organization. This is the goal. This is why I love talking to people like you, Jessie.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Yeah. I'm just excited to have time to geek out about it, because I tell everybody, like, sometimes people will come and ask me a question, that I don't work with every day. And I'm just so eager, I'm like Elf with his itinerary on the Etch-a-Sketch. And then people are like, I just had this one question. I'm like, that's cool. That's fine.
Shake it up.
It's fun. It's fun for me to have an opportunity to get to nerd out a little bit.
So then in the spirit of that, and I want to make sure, okay, we've got maybe 5-10 minutes before we got to announce these winners, whatever. I want to help teach us. Okay, let's say I'm either new in social media or I'm trying to up my game, because and we have these experiments, things that we're doing at TechSmith, where we're kind of, we get together and we talk about, oh, well, how are we going to post on this, and for our own personal stuff. But like, for someone who's coming to this and watching this, like, what's the number one thing you would give as a piece of advice, nerding out with them? Like, okay, here's what you got to try. And maybe we've already said it, but maybe we haven't. Teach us. Wise one.
Just one thing? Oh, gosh.
Well, let's start with one thing, because we've got time. What's the first thing then? Instead of saying one thing, what's the first thing?
I think the first thing is that you need to know your audience, definitely. If you don't know who you're talking to, then it doesn't matter what you're putting out there. It's probably not going to land. So knowing your audience is key, and knowing where they are. So you don't need to start big with every single network and putting all of your content everywhere. Know your audience and start small.
So the follow-up question then is, I'm new to this, Jessie. How do I figure out who my audience is? And I'm guessing that's different if you're a brand versus you're doing it for your own personal kind of reasons. But what suggestions you give to get that information? Because I think it's a great advice, and it's something you've watched, I think, every show almost. So you'll know it's something that we say often on the Visual Lounge, is you got to know your audience, whether you're creating training content, customer education content, technical documentation. It's no different, but I think the way you get to know these things is different. So what would you say?
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple different ways you could do it. First, I would probably join some groups or ask around in your industry, especially if you're a brand. Look at where your competitors are. Survey your audience for sure. If you have a newsletter or something like that. If you already have accounts, look at where people are following you. If on not all of them, but on most platforms, you can see a little bit of demographic information. You can see, maybe some job titles or industries, or even geographical areas. Is your audience primarily English speaking, or is it bilingual? That's going to be important as well. There's lots of things to consider. So, it's going to be different for a consumer brand versus a software company, right? Maybe it's going to be Instagram versus LinkedIn, and there's going to be a big difference there. So if you're only posting on Instagram all the time, you're totally missing them. But if you have an established account, go and look at who's following you, try and find out who they are. And then I would say, look at who you consider your competitors and see where they have a presence. That's probably a good indicator of where to start. There's no need to reinvent the wheel, because they, if they're doing a good job, they're doing well, they're getting good engagement on their content, it's likely that they already did that research and they know where the audience is.
Yeah, I love that. I love that advice. Go to your competitors, because that's not something that I think a lot of, like in other industries, right? Like if I'm an instructional designer, I can't go to my competitors, but for social media, that makes total sense. And I would even say, who are your friends? If I can add to that, right? Like if you've got good friends that are talking similarly, but they're not
Hmm.
competitive. Maybe they're just in a similar space. I would imagine. I'm not giving anything secret away here, but I would like if I want to know who's doing great audio. Like we make
Yeah.
stuff that's in audio. Who are the audience for people in Blue Yeti? Like I don't know. That's probably
Yeah.
at least somewhat similar. Um,
Yeah.
so okay, that's one piece of advice. Know your audience. What's the second piece of
Hmm.
advice, Jesse? And I'm just gonna say a question coming up. We're gonna have to ask because Jeff Julian asked the question. Your favorite
Oh,
Funko
good.
Pop. So in the back of your head, you've got to be
Oh,
thinking about your
oh,
favorite Funko Pop. But
okay.
let's get to the second piece of advice because that's probably almost as valuable.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So no, yes, knowing your audience, meaning you know who they are, know where they are. Um, oh gosh, this is tough. I guess it would probably be understanding your goals and what information is going to be valuable for your audience. So it kind of goes along with knowing who they are, but say I'm selling shampoo. Is it a specialized shampoo? What do I need people to know about this? Are people searching for a special kind of shampoo? Is there something that I could be teaching along with that? So, not just about your product, but about the solutions and the benefits that it provides for people. Um, we do a lot of SEO research to find out what are people searching for that our products could help solve problems for. So I think that is probably the next thing is to make sure your content aligns with that audience and that your goal of what you're trying to provide value for aligns with what their problems are that they're trying to solve.
So that brings up a question in my mind, and because we talked a lot earlier about helping people and solving problems. So let's take your shampoo hypothetical. I'm just thinking about all the technical. I got shampoo in my eye. What do I do?
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, I
Right.
ingested shampoo. Like
Hmm.
the word shampoo is so funny. Uh,
Yeah.
sorry, yeah, but think about it. But so like, how do you balance like if you're setting your goals, right? This is what I want to achieve, and your goal is probably not. I mean, yes, to be helpful, but like your goal is probably promotion if you're a brand.
Yeah.
How do you balance that out then of being like how helpful you are versus like how much attention you're paying? Is it just like you should always just be helpful? Like I mean, my guess is like that's me. I would always just say like, yeah, I'm going to err on the side of always trying to answer every question, but which as you said earlier, many people are turning to social media. If I need help from a brand, I
Hmm.
don't I don't find their contact page necessarily. I will tweet at
Right.
them because I expect a result there versus, like that. So I'm guessing my goal might be a little bit slightly different than I always want to help people. Like I want to
Sure.
answer every single question because that's just like all the time. What's the balance there? Maybe that's a stupid question, but that's kind of what was in my
No,
head as
it's
you're
not.
sharing that.
No, that's a great question. And there are different goals, throughout the organization. There are going to be different goals that, the CEO has than I have, than other people across the organization have. So, there's always going to be different parts of the funnel that you're going to reach people through. So knowing what the goal is for each piece of that and the channel that you're going to be reaching people on. So for social media, is our goal selling people software? Is it being helpful? Those are all great questions. And the answer can be yes to all of those. However, the type of content that I primarily work with is our organic social media. So it's unpaid media. So we're sharing information to be helpful. We're trying to solve problems and solutions to things. Whereas if you have something like a remarketing campaign, people have already shown interest and intent in buying your products. And so then you're going to serve them up an ad that maybe is trying to remind them that they started a purchase that they didn't complete and maybe nudge them along that path a little more. In our case, maybe it's somebody who's never made a video before. So we want to try and catch them, and just be helpful. And that builds awareness. And so then you're getting them into the fold. And if they can associate your brand with providing helpful content and being valuable, there's more of a chance that they're going to, even if they don't purchase your product themselves, they may recommend it to someone else. And that's, something you can't really buy.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely gold. And that's a great answer because I think people struggle. We struggle with that, right? And I think understanding how that works. I want to go to another question, and then the Funko Pop question's still out there, so we're going to get to
It's a
that, and
tough one.
then we need to talk
Thinking.
about winners here. Kathy asks, let me just see if I can put this up on the screen here. How do you keep up with the constant changes to social media platforms? It is difficult to be an expert for each platform. That's a great question. Especially, we talked about there's images sizes and video sizes, and those are always different, and it seems like they're always kind
Hmm.
of shifting over time. So, what do you do? How do you keep track? How do you
Yeah.
keep up on it all? You're just magical,
Well,
right?
I'm just magical. I just, no, I will never pretend to be an expert in everything because, first of all, I think that's impossible. And if you do that, I'd love to talk to you and know your secret. Maybe you don't sleep. I'm not sure. But yeah, you can't be an expert in everything. What I do try to do is follow sources that are curating the things I need to know for me. So I'm part of, a couple of social media groups. I subscribe to a few newsletters where I know that they're going to be on top of the latest things, and I can get emails right to my inbox that give me kind of the headlines of what I need to know. Like, oh, this network's changing their size again, or there's this new feature on another one. I noticed there's a Twitter chat tomorrow about a new feature of Twitter that I was like, ooh, can I make that? And then I always sign up for things and then I get the recordings, and I'm notorious for not watching those. But I still, in the back of my mind, have that, kind of going like, okay, I know there's something changing with this. I'm going to need to remember that. That's going to come up at some point. Um, and that's kind of my superpower, as a mom, to bring that in, is that, I'm constantly cataloging things around the house. Like, there's a red Barbie shoe under the couch. Somebody's going to look for that in a couple days. I don't have time to pick it up right now, but I'm just going to tuck that away for later. And sure enough, someone asks. So just like social media, things are constantly changing and you're cataloging. Like, my biggest thing is to skim the headlines of the things I subscribe to try and keep up and connecting with people in your industry that are those experts that you kind of look up to. That's huge for me.
Yeah, I love that. And of course, no one would take this show and just watch the highlights or skim it, right? Of course not.
No.
No, we fully expect that, actually. Another question before we get to Jeff's Funko Pop question is actually from Jeff. It's a little bit long, so we'll go through this here. How important is it for TechSmith to track these helpful interactions back to customer records? If you helped me via chat or Facebook Messenger, do others in the organization know that if they looked me up in the CRM, the ultimate goal being be able to track interactions to ROI? Now, I want to be careful here because I don't want to get anybody in trouble about talking about our processes if we can't talk about processes. But I would generally imagine that these things are generally helpful. What are your thoughts about Jeff's questions? I'm not going to interject anymore because I have
Yeah.
opinions, but you're the expert.
Sure. So for social media specifically, that is a very important part of how we approach a conversation with a customer. In an ideal world, you would have a conversation history and know that you are not a first-time trial user. Maybe you've been using our products for 10 years. So I'm not going to give you a beginner answer. I'm not going to treat you like you know nothing about it. But I'm also, I'm not going to act like you should know this either. Obviously, I would never do that. But that context is so important when you're talking with people so that you aren't going to people who have been using your product for 10 years and saying, hey, do you want to try Camtasia? And they're like, I've been using this forever. Why would you, it kind of puts people off, and it does kind of wrinkle that connection a little bit, where it takes away that helpfulness, and they kind of feel like you don't care as much because you're not trying to know who they are and remember them. People want to feel special, and people want to feel like they have these connections, and I'm huge on connections and relationship building. I'm not the cold caller. I would never be a good salesperson because I just would be way too nice about it and be like, well, this is cool, but if you don't like it, then that's okay. We can just be friends. And I just wouldn't be a good salesperson because of that.
That's why we get along so well, Jessie. I think it's because we're of like mind in that sense. So, great
I'm sorry
answer.
to any of our sales team watching this.
No, we still sell stuff, but hopefully it's through those connections as relationships, right? Like hopefully we
Yes.
we provide so much value. And I think that's true. And
Exactly.
I think it's a good point. And I mean, we joke about that, right? Like, but I
Yeah.
think it's hard to estimate the value of those relationships in social, and,
Hmm.
that one well-placed answer to help somebody to get through a problem, or that
Hmm.
kind of ongoing consistency of support, I think is so valuable. That if you're not doing social media in that way, Jessie is a great example. And, it's easy for me to say that because I work for TechSmith, but in genuine, I've learned so much about being able to connect with people, and that being able to be willing to help people from
Hmm.
Jessie is it's super valuable. And I love your answer, right? Like, we want to treat people, and not because we want them just to feel special, but because we think they are special. We want them to know that
Yeah.
we
Oh man.
genuinely agree with, and want them to
Hmm.
know that, like, we're so grateful. Like, everyone in the chat, Jeff and Kathy, and everybody else that has posted,
Yeah.
Alan, and everyone that's just said hello. That's really meaningful to us, and we
Hello.
we genuinely
Yeah.
feel that way. So
Yeah, definitely. I get really excited when I see names that I recognize. It's in the chat. I'm like, oh, hey, again, like Buddy the Elf. I just get so excited. So when I'm doing the chat, I'm like, hey, does anybody have any questions? Hey, does anybody want to know what Matt thinks about this? And I feel so obnoxious when people don't answer. So, just a shout out to everybody that does participate in the chat. Thank you so much for making our jobs easier, because I don't like Matt to feel like he's talking to no one, because he's not. But at the same time, it's understandable if you don't have questions. That's okay. But it's so much more fun when you do.
yeah. Well, Jessie, the time has come. You have to answer the hardest question of the day. What's your favorite Funko Pop? And I'm going to switch to your
Okay.
shot, so because you can see
Okay.
Jessie has a few, and those that are just a
I
few
do.
showing.
Okay. All right. So it's really tough here. I'm gonna have to go with Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy, because he is holding Baby Groot, so it's a 2-for-1. And Drax is my favorite from Guardians of the Galaxy because he has the best sense of humor ever. So he's probably my favorite right now. And runner-up's got to be Merida, because she is my current D&D character. So there you go.
So I have, it's funny. I own one Funko Pop. My kids own
Really?
several. Yeah, but I have one. I'll go grab it real quick.
I
And it's totally Dungeons and Dragons. It is
I
a
love
mind
it.
flayer, Illithid. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's
he
perfect.
watches over and controls a bunch of stuff. But Jesse, we have something more important to talk about. We can talk
We
Dungeons and
sure
Dragons
do.
and Funko Pop all day long. That should we should almost start a separate podcast, but I don't think TechSmith wants that.
Yes.
We had a contest, and Jesse was integral in helping this to pull off. We posted this on social. We talked it here on the Visual Lounge. Because we've been doing this thing for a year, and we're going to hopefully in a whole nother year. We even started a second series. If you haven't checked out our workflow series, part of the Visual Lounge podcast with Justin and Andy and myself, those are really fun. I enjoy those. Aren't live, but we enjoy recording those, talking about video recreation from three perspectives. A fairly novice, not video creator, me with instructional design background, Andy as a professional video producer. We asked people to share what they learned this last year, and put a hashtag social media. We learned this from social media,
Oh
the
yeah.
Visual Lounge, and we have a list. I'm not going to share the list because we got a bunch of information in there I can't share, but we've got several entries, and we've got dice because we're tying it all back. Dungeons and Dragons. This is not random
Right.
conversation. I'm a nerd, and this is just a few of the dice.
Yes.
We're not going to roll all of them, but we're going to roll enough to pick our three winners. So, should we do this, Jesse? Do you have your dice right there?
Yeah, I do.
Do you want to
You
roll
want me
for
to
one of
roll?
these too? We can both roll,
Sure.
because that's
Yeah.
really the
What do
fun
you
of D12.
what a D12, okay.
Yeah. So, okay,
You
here we
just
go.
dig
I'll
it
roll
out
the
of the
first one while you're getting yours
bag
out.
here.
Here it
Okay,
goes.
go ahead.
Okay, that's a 1. So,
Okay.
uh, it was. I guess, can I share names, Jesse? Was that
Yeah.
legit?
Yes.
Michael Greth. He shared on Twitter. And let me just pull this up here so I can look at it. I had actually all of them open, but it's too many. Burn subtitles into your video with Microsoft Stream and Camtasia.
Yes.
So,
And I
good tip.
believe this one is in German, if I am remembering
Yes.
correctly.
So that makes it harder for me to understand, but we've got people that can
Yes,
understand
me
it. So
too. But I did send it to Anton, so
fantastic. So that's our first one.
awesome.
Congratulations, Michael. Let's
Yeah,
have
thank
you
you.
re-roll a
Okay,
1 or a
ready?
12. So just so you know.
Okay. A 2.
A 2. This was shared on Facebook, and I apologize if I'm not saying the name exactly correct. Taik Sun shared. Let me open this one up here. Oh, that's the same. I clicked on the link twice. This one was. I'd have to go and watch it because it talks about what they've learned from. They just shared. That's what it said. So I have to. It just
I
says
have a screenshot.
what I've learned from TechSmith live streams and the Visual Lounge. But
yes, this was a video too. So bonus points for that. A video created with Camtasia. So nicely done.
What are the odds that we've rolled a 1 and a 2?
I know, that's pretty crazy.
So we got one more winner. Now each of these winners is going to get to choose 6-month subscriptions to the Visual, not the Visual Lounge. You get that all the time.
That's the Visual Lounge. You get to watch us for a whole other year.
6-month subscription of Audiate, or 6-month subscription of assets for Camtasia, or assets for for Snagit. Your choice of one of those. Audiate, if you don't know, is a TechSmith product. Takes your audio or your video and turns it into transcriptions, which is super awesome. Super great tool.
Which I use Audiate every time I do on my shareouts because I say about 30,000 times a minute. And it's like magic. It just, you can silence your ums or you can cut them out. And it's amazing.
Yeah, I love it too. I've been using it, especially for social media, because then I can get those captions in for one-off quick videos. Okay, yes. I rolled an 11. So we broke the streak, 1, 2, 3, not 3, but 11. This is Corey Freedy, shared on Twitter. And Corey said, if you are trying to improve your videos, either for students or yourself, Visual Lounge from TechSmith has great tips. Oh, thank you. Check out the archives because I learned too many things this year to fit in 160 characters. And it looks like was a link to one of our last episodes, which is awesome, Corey. Thank you so much. So that's the reason we want to do this, because here's the thing that I've learned from a learning perspective. If you're reflecting on what you're learning, you actually learn more. And we know as a Visual Lounge, we cover a lot of topics, a variety of topics. We go from education, like educators, to instructional designer, technical writers, marketing. We're covering this whole gamut of using about visuals and images, and we just want you guys to make sure you're learning, because we do this for that purpose. We just are trying to be helpful. We want you to learn. So we're going to reach out to those winners. If you're not here live today, we're so glad that you could share that with us. And if you've learned something from the Visual Lounge, go ahead and tag us, #Visual Lounge, because guess who's going to see it? Other way, I gotta get my camera right. Jesse's going to see it. And we're going to
I've been backwards this whole time. It's very disorienting, but it's okay. It always is. We made it.
Someday I'll learn that I got to point the right direction. So with that said, I mean, we are about at time. So Jessie, let's do this just because I think it's always good. Any final thoughts for our audience about using video and images for social media?
Sure. Using images and video for social media is wonderful because it helps you stand out. You can convey information in a quick manner, and it's easy for people to scan and take in the information that they need and get the value out of what you're trying to communicate. So highly recommend that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that said, we're going to skip what's new at TechSmith, although there's always new great things at TechSmith. Go check that out. We do want to ask, of course, if you like what you hear on the Visual Lounge, let us know. Leave a rating, review, a thumbs up. Subscribe to it on YouTube. You can go check it out on our blog, techsmith.com/blog. We mentioned all this great repurposing. You can get the full episodes in a video format, in a blog post format, and then there's social content on all the channels. So just look for us. We will be around. Thanks again to Jessie. Thanks, Jessie.
Thank you for having me.
We'll do this again. And Jessie, you're a constant part of the show too, always helping us out in the chat. So thank you for a year of helping me. And
Thursdays are my favorite.
A year of having to listen to this guy again talk about stuff.
I love it.
So thanks everybody for tuning in, and we will catch you guys next week with another episode here in the Visual Lounge. Till next time.